Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination, cultivating true contentment, the art of living a life of quality over quantity. Visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, at our simplified URL, tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com to find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From a Monday motivational post, recipes, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and readers' favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which is posted each Friday morning. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 338th episode of the Simple Sophisticate. Today we are in the middle of French Week. If you tuned into our most recent episode, 337, you know that there's going to be 2 new episodes during this week, the 7th annual French Week. And today's episode is all about the Eurostar and tips on taking it between Paris and London and Paris. And I'll also share just some general tips, so maybe you're traveling from London to Brussels or to Amsterdam. So any of these tips will apply. It doesn't have to be just Paris or London, except for I'm just going to specifically talk about those 2 terminals, those 2 stations, because those are the 2 that I have been in. But before I get to this list of tips, this week's petit plaisir, or should I say today's petit plaisir, because we had one on Monday, is a French film that stars a well-known French actress, and the storyline is beautiful and uplifting and courageous and lighthearted, but full at the same time. I do hope you'll stick around to find out what that is. I genuinely enjoyed that film about 2 months ago now, and I look forward to sharing it with you. All right, so let's get into our episode. It's been said that taking the Eurostar, which runs under the English Channel, connecting London to Brussels, Paris, Lille, Rotterdam, and Amsterdam, is much more like taking a plane ride than taking a train ride. And in many respects, I would have to agree. Why? It's swift, it's nonstop, and there is wonderful service and amenities for comfort as you drift along in either direction. Today's episode is for the first-time traveler choosing to take the Eurostar, and especially for those of you like me who don't live in Europe or Britain and want to see as much of the 2 countries that you love during one trip with ease. I booked my first ticket on the Eurostar in 2012. I boarded in London, and it was destined for Paris. I rode standard, which would also be considered coach, with my travel companion, and the ease of having your luggage with you, sitting in comfortable seats with spacious seating arrangements, all the while knowing the only stop will be your stop, eased my mind, as it was the first time I had traveled abroad to Europe since 2000, and in 2000 I just stayed in France. Fast forward to 2022, this past April, and I booked our standard Premier tickets. There are 3 classes on the Eurostar. There are standard, standard Premier, and business Premier. Our tickets were booked having us leave from Paris, departing for London. The upgrade to standard Premier was lovely and worth the additional space, a bit quieter car, although standard was fairly quiet as well, and the upgrade in dining service was oh so good. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in our conversation today. But I'm getting ahead of myself a bit. Food. I can always get off track with food. I want to first break this down into a couple different parts. So the first section, we're going to talk about how to simply book or take the Eurostar. And so we'll just go through the simple checklist as 1, 2. So number 1 is, how do you book it? Well, you book it online via Eurostar.com. Booking online is super simple, as their website is highly user-friendly and easy to navigate. You will see all of the prices for each of the classes on the date you have chosen up front. You then continue through the process and can print out or email yourself the ticket, or you can also upload your ticket on their Eurostar app, whether you have Apple or a Google phone, which I would recommend, as you then would be able to receive notifications of any changes, train delays, things like that. So that part is so simple. And the second part, and this is what I really like about Eurostar, is do book ahead as far in advance as you can. So you know you already have your plane ticket, for example. You know you're already going to be in London or Paris or whichever destination that the Eurostar is connecting you to and from. So book your ticket, find the class that you want, pay for it, and let me explain why, because you don't have to worry, because you can change the time and even the day that you depart, so long as it's within a certain window. So I did a little bit of experimenting just to see if booking ahead was worth it, meaning was it cheaper to book earlier? Did the prices actually increase as the date got closer? And I found that indeed the prices do go up as you get closer to your departure date. The earlier you book, the cheaper the tickets will be, no matter what time of day. There are different price points at different time of day. So departure times in the morning are typically more expensive, and midday a little cheaper, and then returning in the evening a little more expensive again. And again, it depends on the day of the week as well. Work weeks, that's typically the case. Saturdays are a little cheaper. Again, everything changes with what's going on in either country. The closer our departure came on the calendar, those same tickets kept inching up in price. Standard you can actually purchase for fewer than $100, and while Business Premier doesn't change as much as you near that date of departure, it does increase. In comparison, in just 1 week prior to your departure, the standard can be $200 or more. So if you plan a couple months ahead, you're paying $91. You get closer to maybe 4 days away, you're paying over $200 for the same ticket, the exact same ticket. So if you book way ahead, you have locked in your price essentially. Okay. So long as you change anything prior to 7 days before your trip, so it has to be before the 7-day mark, you can change without a fee. If you change within 7 days, so 4 days, 3 days, you're going to incur an additional fee. And I think it's about $40. I could be wrong about that exact price. If you upgrade to a different class, regardless of when you change that, you're going to have to pay the difference. But if you do upgrade prior to 7 days, you're only paying for the upgrade. You're not paying for the change fee. So book ahead, book early, and you'll save yourself some money. And that is how simple it is to book tickets on the Eurostar. Now, the next section or portion of this episode, I want to focus on how to go about arriving at either station, whether it's London, which is St. Pancras, or Paris, which is Gare du Nord. And both of them are the Eurostar stations, but they're each a little different. And I have some tips about how to just maybe decrease your stress levels a bit, especially if you've never traveled on these two legs of the journey. So let's start from Paris, which is what we recently did this April. So you're in Paris, you're in the heart of the city. Gare du Nord is right there in the heart of the city on the right bank. And the first thing you want to do, so you've arrived, your taxi or however you've arrived at the front of the station outside, you've arrived. And the first thing you want to do is take a right when you walk in the doors and then go up the escalator. I say this because, as I said, I had the opportunity to do this trip just recently, and I have to give so much thanks to our taxi driver, because as soon as we arrived at the train station, he instructed us to take the right upon entering the doors and then go to the escalator, and that escalator is what takes you to the level where the Eurostar check-in is. And honestly, it would have been a little overwhelming had I not known this. I'm sure we would have figured it out. We were there well in advance of our departure time. But his ease and simplicity of, okay, I can help you out. Go in, right, and find the escalator and go up. That's all he said, but with a smile, and just basically really reassured us. Because the trains on the ground level are the local trains. The Gare du Nord is a big hub of trains, as many of you know. And a lot of different lines come through there. But the Eurostar, everything is upstairs except for the trains themselves. So you got to get upstairs to check in, go through security, and then get to the waiting room. As far as taxi cabs, which I'll real quickly talk about, I've linked the two that I use. I use Victor cabs, and I also use the G7 cabs. I've linked both of those, and I've had great experiences with each of them. I have tried to use Uber in Paris. I haven't found it to be as successful as it can be in the States. These two cab companies are reliable. You can schedule ahead, which is what we did when we arrived in Paris to get to our vacation rental and to get to the train station. All right, so that's number one. Number two, as I just mentioned, checking in for the Eurostar in Paris takes place upstairs above the trains. If you have traveled in Paris and you've used the metro, you know that this station, Gare Noire, is a central hub, as I mentioned, for trains in the city, and many lines run in and out of the station. The boarding for those trains, as I just mentioned as well, within France takes place in the lower level. We need to dismiss that and move away from that because the Eurostar loading platform and waiting area and check-in are all upstairs on the second level, which is accessible by both elevator and escalator. And I've included a picture below, and this picture was captured while standing on the platform waiting to check in. And you can look out over the station. It's a beautiful view of the station. You just go up the escalator with your luggage, and the trains that you see in this picture are not the Eurostar trains. These are the local trains, and you simply will look further to the left, which there's a wall of windows, and then on the other side of the wall of windows is where all the Eurostar trains are and their tracks. And I did not get a photo of that. I do apologize for that, but that is where they will be when you walk up the escalator. Number three, you can only check in when your time is welcomed. So they limit who can come through the check-in gates so that the waiting room is only for those people getting on the most recent or upcoming train. So don't get there too early, and it's usually about an hour before your departure. You will have to wait in this little open, it's not little, it's open area. You come up the escalator, but it's not huge, and it looks out over all the trains. This is not a bad place to wait, as there is much to entertain your eyes. As I mentioned, that's where this photo was taken. However, this is helpful to know, not having to get there super early, because if you arrive 2 hours early to try to get through security lines early enough and not have to wait in line, you won't be able to. They won't let you go through security because they haven't opened up check-in for your train. So just to let you know that you can save yourself some time, maybe have a nice déjeuner or petit déjeuner if you're getting up early to go on the train, because there's some vendors downstairs as well. 4, the waiting area for the Eurostar is separate from the other trains. And I again mentioned this briefly a second ago. But once you check in, you then go through security. The large waiting area is then right after you go through security. And there are many seats. Although I will say, about 15 minutes before they allowed us to start getting on the train, that room filled up very fast. And we were traveling in the middle of the day, or actually late morning on a Saturday, but it was Easter weekend, so that's probably why. But it was packed, and that was standing room only. So I do think it's smart to get there a little early within the window they let you in. And then if you do have, a lot of luggage and you're in coach, it's probably best to try to get onto the train earlier. But if you were in business premier or even standard premier, there was not even a worry about having a space and we each had 2 pieces of luggage, and it wasn't a problem at all. Most of the seats were full. I would say 90%. It was a full train. However, keep in mind in the waiting area, once you're in the Eurostar waiting area, there is coffee, there is some food to enjoy. There is a chocolatier shop. So you can, sit and read and relax and nibble there while you wait. And there's easy signage to figure out when your train is coming and things like that. Number 5, we're still in Paris. We're still getting ready to load the train here. The order of classes on the train, which way to go to board. All right, so I'm just going to help you out. Again, this is in Paris. Initially, just follow the signs, and everyone goes the same way when they leave the waiting area. They're on the second floor still before they descend down to where the trains are. Everyone's going to go in the same direction. But once you are on the train level, you need to know where your class is loading. You are looking for your car number, and there are sometimes different car numbers, and one's actually physically printed on the train, and another one is in the digital area, and you're looking in the digitized area on the side of the train. But even if you're confused, don't worry. There are employees at every single door of each car to check your ticket to make sure you're getting on the right car to save you time. Just know that business premier, so first class, if you're in Paris, is furthest down the head of the train heading toward London. And standard or coach is the closest to the station. So standard premier is right in the middle. And if you've traveled this train a lot, you know this and you just know which way to go. But if you don't, just keep in mind that standard is closest to the station and the first class or the business premier is further away from the station. So once you're on the train, enjoy the ride, and you get off in London, St. Pancras, and maybe it's time to find a taxi. It was for us. And I have a picture of the taxi queue, which is right across the street from St. Pancras when you get out of the station. And it's very easy to find. If nothing else, you just look for the long line of taxis. And it looks as though it's going to take forever for you to get your taxi, and the line might be kind of long, but it moves so swiftly. They get you going, they get you moving, and that's the easiest way to get in a taxi and get where you want to go right after getting off the train with your luggage. And everything's flat, and you can roll your luggage. It's very simple. All right, so that is how to travel from Paris to London and navigate the station and arrival in London. So now let's go the other way. So we're departing from London at St. Pancras train station, a gorgeous train station. I have a couple pictures on the outside if you want to take a peek. Very modern inside, lots of dining and eating and newspapers and shops to go into before you get to the waiting area for Eurostar. So we had breakfast at St. Pancras before we went on another train, because they actually have other trains there as well. Although St. Pancras doesn't feel as large as Paris's Eurostar station for whatever reason. Maybe it's just me. All right, so the first thing, where is check-in? Well, check-in in London is on the same level, the first or the main level, when you enter from the street. You will easily see the long, winding lines as you walk in the door, and just follow the Eurostar signage. I found London's Eurostar a little bit easier for checking in than in Paris's with regards to being a first timer. And that's why I was grateful to my taxi driver in Paris for giving us the 1-2 there. Once you are in line in London, and again, they will wait to let you in based on when your train leaves. And because you have to go through security, which is part of what Brexit changed for those who are crossing into the other country. And that is, again, the similar aspect to what you'll have to do in Paris. The waiting area. Now, the last time I waited in this area was 10 years ago, 2012. However, we walked past it when we arrived in London, and just from that glance, it looked very similar to what I remember in 2012. It's very modern. It's a bit smaller than Paris's, but I liked it. There was ample seating, and the food and beverage was available, not like in the main station, so I would definitely recommend perusing St. Pancras' entire station before getting in line to check in for the Eurostar, as there are many, many shops. There's even a Hatchards there. So you have the main Hatchards downtown in London on Piccadilly, and now they have one in St. Pancras, and you won't miss it. It's only been there since 2015, but you can't miss it because it has the William Morris willow bough wallpaper all over the place. I just was like, oh, I got to go in here. And of course, we got a few books before we got on the train. But there's good food and all sorts of shopping to do before you get on the train. The loading for the train in London is the reverse, as you might imagine, with regards to where your class car is located. But again, they have employees by each door of each car to help ensure that you get on the correct one. Now, the loading area where you board the train is where this beautiful tall bronze of the two people embracing is located. So when you get off and when you get on, you see this beautiful, huge bronze, which stands 30 feet in the air, and it's called the Meeting Place, and it was installed for an estimated £1 million in 2007. And interesting to note, the artist or sculptor, Paul Day, modeled the people, the man and the woman, after himself and his wife. So the next time you're there, you can look up. And what it's meant to do is evoke the romance of travel. I love that sculpture. I remember seeing it for the first time in 2012 and just being in awe, and just the proportions of it. It just sits right there at the end of the station as you go down into the waiting room. So the other thing you can do at St. Pancras is to enjoy a little bit of champagne or a nibble at the Champagne Bar or the St. Pancras Brasserie. I have never taken advantage of this, but I know that there are Simply Luxurious Life readers and Simple Sophisticate listeners who have. I highly recommend it. So be sure to check out St. Pancras Brasserie or Champagne Bar right there in the station, in the area of where the trains are, to enjoy a nibble or a sip before you depart or after you arrive. Now, I have another picture in the show notes. You can see a side pic of the exterior of the station. Again, beautiful arched windows. And we were there in London on a beautiful blue day, which I know is not always the case. So the pictures were just captured, the windows and the blue sky juxtaposed with the red brick. And I just love that station. Okay, so there you go. There are your tips for leaving London or leaving Paris. A little different on each one, but very doable. You can do it. It's very simple, but knowing those little tips about where to go and what you're looking for always help. Now, what are the benefits of taking the Eurostar? I'm going to come back and share with you 7 benefits of taking the Eurostar. But first, I have a sponsor I'd like to introduce you to. Whether you're spending long sunny days by the pool, or perhaps you're in Provence enjoying a summer vacation, there is a universal urge to make the most out of summer. The Faraday family lives for this time of year, and their brand captures that feeling of summer and adventure in their collection of high-quality clothing that's incredibly soft and comfortable, always sustainably minded, and meant to be worn from surf to city. Faraday is a family-run brand making high-quality, timeless clothing with modern design and functionality. They've mastered the art of the perfect summer outfit, the effortlessness, the ease, super comfortable but designed with intention. Kind of looks like it might be vintage, but it fits so well that it feels like it was made just yesterday and just for you. That's what Faraday does best. I've had the opportunity to enjoy wearing their beach linen summer dress pretty much all summer. And I've worn it to dinner parties. I've worn it to the market. I've worn it around the house to walk Norman. I genuinely like this dress. The linen is high quality. The fit fits my body, which is tall, broad shoulders, long arms. And because it's linen, it's breathable fabric, which is exactly what I want for summer, making it very comfortable. Their clothes are thoughtfully crafted with a classic style. You will wear them over and over again. Faraday is so committed to sustainability, they even have a lifetime guarantee of quality. They'll replace or fix your clothes forever, no matter what, so your clothes can last as long as your favorite summertime memories. Right now, Faraday is giving all listeners of the Simple Sophisticate podcast 20% off. Yep, that's right, 20% off. Head to FaradayBrand.com/sophisticate and use the promo code sophisticate at checkout to get this deal. That's code sophisticate at Faraday, FAHERTY brand.com/sophisticate for 20% off. Again, that's FaradayBrand.com/sophisticate. Welcome back. So we've talked about how to get our tickets. We've talked about how to successfully ride and catch and enjoy the train ride. But now what I'd like to talk about when it comes to the Eurostar is the benefits and why you should maybe consider taking the Eurostar and hopping across the channel one way or the other. Number one, it's sustainable travel. Eurostar states proudly that when you choose to take the train from London to Paris or vice versa, you are emitting 93% less CO2 per passenger. If you were traveling to Brussels, it's 92% less, and to Amsterdam, 86%. That is one of the biggest pride points of the Eurostar in comparison to if you were taking a plane. So something to think about there if you are more accustomed to taking a plane. It generally does feel as though you're on a plane in many ways without some of the headaches of plane travel, especially since it's such a short trip. So speaking of that, number 2, there are fewer security limitations. Now you might see this as a plus or minus. It depends. You still go through security, metal detector, luggage goes through, you go through. Everything is in that regard the same, but there are fewer limits. For example, the liquids don't have to be in 3.2 ounces. So you can have, your larger bottles if for whatever reason that's all you have, or you just don't have the travel size, whatever. So that does help. And number 3 is your luggage doesn't have a weight limit. So typically there's a weight limit when you fly the plane, understandably. And with the train, not the case. There is a limit on how many pieces of luggage you can bring. And that's part of the benefit of traveling standard, premier, or business premier, because by the time you get to business premier, you can bring 3 pieces of luggage and then your personal items. But there's no weight limit. So that's something to keep in mind. Number 4, and this is the part that I love, we almost purchased Business Premier, but by the time I dawdled about, the prices had gone up a bit more. If I would have purchased the tickets the first time I looked at the website and saw this awesome benefit, which is, I'll get to that now, I guess, my apologies, Raymond Blanc, the chef Raymond Blanc, one of my favorite French chefs who has restaurants in England, he designed the menu for the Business Premier. I know. Anyway, you still get amazing food for standard premier, and you get drinks and alcohol. It's all included in your price. You don't have to be paying anything else inside the cabin or the car, as compared to the standard, which you do get food, but nothing compared to the standard premier or the business premier. I've linked to a previous post I wrote about Raymond Blanc. He takes his French cuisine training, cooks seasonally, and it's just, they're simple dishes, but they are so great. All right, so that's number 4, delicious food. Go on the Eurostar, delicious food. Friendly service, number 5. The service is more attentive as you go up in class, but all service is welcoming and comfortable. And the seating is so comfortable and spacious, lots of legroom, even in standard. There's more as you get up and move up in class, of course. But you can rest your eyes, you can read, you can simply watch the French countryside whiz by as you spend most of the time for this particular trip going through Normandy, and only 20 minutes under the English Channel going through the Channel, and maybe 15 above ground in England. So it's a lovely, beautiful, in many ways, tour, although a very speedy tour, through the northern French countryside. Speaking of the time, it's a very swift ride. It's just over 2 hours to Paris. I believe it's 2 hours and 16 minutes, 2 hours and 6 minutes. And it is on point. I mean, you are there. It's very on time, very much on time. No stops as you're traveling. I was amazed how fast this time flies by. It was always a nice time to catch my breath, to resettle myself. And because you're enjoying a full meal, the time passes even more quickly. You can even take a little bit of a nap because it only goes to those stops. You're not gonna miss your stop. Everybody gets off, so that's what's nice. And your luggage is right there next to you. You can put it at the front or the back of the particular car that you are on. You can also place carry-on above you, so you're not having to go find your luggage once you get to this train station or worry about your luggage while you're riding the train. So those are the 7 benefits that I've found while traveling on the Eurostar. If you have traveled the Eurostar as well and have found other benefits or other tips that you would like to share, please do in the comment section. All of us would appreciate any helpful tips and ideas. Traveling by Eurostar is my way of traveling back and forth between the 2 countries that I love, and I know many of you do as well. I find it quite stress-free, enjoyable whilst on the train, and delicious too. I've linked to the homepage of the Eurostar on the show notes, so you can check that out. Visit thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 338, and I'll be back with this week's or today's petit plaisir. This episode episode's petit plaisir is the film La Fine Fleur, or The Rosemaker. Now, the driving yet subtle theme throughout La Fine Fleur is to value beauty for beauty's sake, not to acquire something more. So you're not using beauty to acquire something more, such as a gain of more profit. Catherine Frott, who you may remember from the film Haute Cuisine, which is a lovely film. She becomes the chef for the president of France. She stars as the main character, Eve Varney, having inherited her father's rose farm, and she is determined to keep this business afloat financially, but she is struggling to stay out of bankruptcy. The legacy her father has left behind of breeding and growing unique varieties of roses is a skill he passed on to his daughter Eve, and she is brilliant at it. She knows how to create unique beauty and has a nose, a beautifully powerful, wonderful nose. However, funds are low. The business is struggling, as I mentioned, so it will take her some courage, along with her staff as well, and some stealthy ideas, and the help of these 3 newly hired employees who have been hired by Eve's trusted assistant, and because she was trying to save funds, hired on the cheap, unbeknownst to Eve, as a way to help her maintain the business they both love. Eve takes the new workers under her wing, and they don't have any gardening experience. While they may be misunderstood outcasts, as they are described, this lack of experience in the flower business is actually a benefit, as they come, quote, with fresh ideas and strong work ethics. I genuinely loved this French film that became available just this past spring in 2022. I believe it was in the 1st of June or end of May, and was released in France last year. The beauty of Eve's home on the outskirts of Paris, it's out in the countryside, but really close to Paris, and especially her office, her sofa. Oh, I think you'll fall in love with her sofa. The roses, of course, are beautiful and fun to see in their glory of presentation at some of the award shows, but I think I enjoy them even more when they're just on the farm. But most importantly, it's the relationships that I enjoyed that are built between Eve and her workers and her assistant. And I think you'll enjoy this film as well. Let's take a look at the trailer for The Rosemaker, La Fine Fleur.
Bonjour Madame Vernet, je dois vous informer qu'un repreneur s'est positionné.
C'est hors de question, je ne vendrai jamais. Vous allez rebondir, Madame Vernet. Il y a sans doute des solutions. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez qu'il y ait comme solution ?
Je viens pour vous nouveaux employés.
C'est une erreur, là. C'est moi qui vous ai contacté. Vous leur avez dit qu'on ne pourra pas les payer. Ils sont en insertion et c'est beaucoup moins cher. Bon, j'espère que vous aimez les roses. Vous, qu'est-ce que c'est que ces chaussures ?
Des claquettes.
Ils ont une formation horticole, au moins. Alors, justement, on doit les former. Ici, les roses que j'ai fait naître.
Pourquoi on se fait chier avec des rosiers, là ? Il y a des serres partout, on a juste à faire pousser de la beuh et c'est bon ?
Non, on va rester sur les roses. Ici, ce sont mes dernières créations. Observez bien les nuances. Pour hybrider, on sélectionne les meilleurs pères et mères. Voilà. Qu'est-ce qui se passe, là ? Oh, c'est une catastrophe. Madame Vernet est en redressement. Donc, on doit à tout prix vendre plus de rosiers.
Là, je peux vous faire une proposition de reprise vraiment intéressante. Réfléchissez encore. Lui, il sent trop le faux plan, là. C'est qui, le vieux ?
Mon père. Il m'a légué son rêve. Et les emmerdes qui vont avec. Venez, vite, attention, tiens.
Celui-là.
Tu as peut-être un don.
Fermez pas systématiquement la porte quand on vous tend la main.
Je préfère rester indépendante. Votre père m'avait fait promettre de ne jamais vous laisser tomber. Vous en avez pris soin jusqu'à ce qu'elle fleurisse. C'est vous, ses créateurs. La vie sans beauté, c'est quoi?
The last line, as just to translate, is, what is life without beauty? And part of her push for maintaining the business and not being bought out, because there is a very lucrative offer that's presented, is she wants to remain free and do her own thing. And yes, honor her father, but also do what she's very, very good at. And her four employees, the assistant and the 3 new workers, they respect her for what she's doing. And so then they support her to try to make sure that the business continues. It's just a beautiful story, uplifting, has depth, but it's not too heavy, and it's beautiful. And of course, it's in French, so you can practice your French as you watch it. You can view the film on a lot of different streaming platforms. I've linked to the movies or the film's homepage, which has links to every single place you can stream. I watched it on Apple TV Plus. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. You can watch it on Google Play, Vudu, YouTube, but there are even more than that. So I've linked to that on the post for this petit plaisir. Go to thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/pp338 La Fine Fleur. You can also visit the podcast episode show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast338, and it will link to this post. All right. I hope you've enjoyed today's petit plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Now, I just want to let you know this is the last episode of season 8. Yes, we are concluding the 8th season of this show. As you know, we start our seasons in September and they conclude in August during French Week, which means that our next episode kicks off season 9, and that will be on Wednesdays moving forward. So the first and third Wednesday will be when new episodes air, and the first episode will be on Wednesday, September 7th. And then 2 weeks after that on the 21st. I want to quickly share what's been going on French Week. There have been 4 giveaways so far with 7 potential winners. And those giveaways were from brands such as Trudon, the Trudon candles, Le Chamoux rain boots, the soaps, the Vendée Marseille. And I'm also giving away a French teapot that is from De Green, the Salam teapots that have the insulated tea cozy is what I call it, but it's called a tea cover. Very elegant. And there's also going to be a grand giveaway that's announced on this Friday. And the 5th giveaway, so the grand giveaway is the 6th giveaway. The 5th giveaway is the giveaway that I will give away to newsletter subscribers of the weekly and monthly newsletter. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, be sure that you do to potentially take advantage of winning this giveaway. All right. I want to thank you for tuning in this entire week, and I look forward to getting back into our podcast new season in September. Wishing you a wonderful rest of the week and upcoming weekend. And until September 7th, bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog The Simply Luxurious Life with the shortened URL tsll.co. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, be sure to pick up my first 2 books. Each are available in hardback, paperback, ebook, and at Audible for audio listening. The first is titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and the second, Living the Simply Luxurious Life. And look for a 3rd book to be released in the spring of 2022. Readers can now join the more intimate Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which provides ad-free unlimited reading and access to exclusive content such as each month's A Cup of Moments video chat, tours of my home, Le Papillon, the regular monthly post, What Made Me Smile, and Saturday Ponderings, as well as the opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, and the cooking show, as well as receive exclusive news and an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free monthly newsletter, which arrives on the last day of each month. And there's a weekly newsletter, a favorite of listeners and readers, which is also free and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a cup of morning coffee and stay in the know about all things simply luxurious. Thank you for tuning in today, and look for 2 new episodes of this podcast each month on the 1st and 3rd Monday. To be alerted to new episodes and when they become available, follow on Instagram, the Simple Sophisticate podcast, and only the news about this show will be shared. Until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée.